Welcome to the earthvox podcast. The earthvox podcast. earthvox podcast.
And it's May 25th, 11:02 a.m. because I made sure the Rumble stream was working, and it is, which is great because we're really collecting some followers. I don't like that word. Accumulating. We're accumulating followers aplenty on Rumble. So thank you, Rumble audience. We're also streaming live on X and YouTube and Twitch. But hey, that's where the people are, right? If you're watching on YouTube or Twitch, come on over to Rumble or watch on X, which has seemed to have taken a really hard left in the last few weeks, maybe months. If it ever even actually went away, if it ever actually stopped being hard left, I'm reminded of all of Elon Musk's close ties and affiliations with China, where he manufactures many of his things. But no China today. At least I don't think so. Not intentionally. I do love to rail on China, though. So thank you very much for joining the show. Please hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, and hit the share button. You can also find the podcast on Apple Podcasts and Spotify and the numerous other audio-only podcast platforms. I'd appreciate you doing that and leaving me a review if you can, if you would. I know you can. Just a matter of will, isn't it? I made a recent, I had, what would you call it, an epiphany? When I was trying to buy food to feed my family. We have this issue, which is spawned from laziness. Okay, I'm not going to make excuses. As I've mentioned before, as you know, if you listen to this show regularly, we like to do a DoorDash or two on the weekends because we're chilling. We're kicking back. We're recovering from the work week. Happy Memorial Day weekend, by the way. I didn't do anything, and I have no intention of doing anything because I like to just sit around in my pajamas, and it's everything I can do to just get up and go mow my grass. So I have to mow my grass because Trump deported my gardener. No, not really. I would never pay a gardener. I can't even, I mean, kids, when we first moved into this house, kids used to come by and say, hey, can we mow your grass or rake your leaves or weed your flower beds? And I always told them no. And then I think about it. I reconsider my position. And then I think, nah, I can't. I can't part with $20 to do something that takes me 20 minutes. I just need to suck it up and not be such a little bitch is the way I refer to myself when I don't want to mow the grass or I don't want to work out or any other number of things that I don't want to do, which I tell my kids all the time. Life is really about doing things that you don't want to do, which is kind of unfortunate and depressing. So we DoorDash from time to time because neither my wife or I wants to really leave the house ever. But, you know, we do things that we don't want to do because that's what life is all about. Now I have a taste for Safeway chicken strips because they're delicious, even though they're not healthy for me. I also kind of relax my diet restrictions on the weekend. Well, one day on Saturday. Saturday is a free-for-all. And we've been disappointed many times in the past because we call DoorDash and we say, hey, we want Safeway chicken strips. And they're like, yeah, we'll go get you some Safeway chicken strips. And without fail, you would think at a certain point we would stop trying, which we did. Because whenever we order DoorDash from Safeway, or really from any grocery store, I've kind of not created hard set in stone rules, but now when we DoorDash, it's generally fast food only, because that's the only thing that doesn't end in disappointment, unless, of course, we're trying to DoorDash Taco Time. I don't get it. I don't get why we have this service, DoorDash, but we can't just say, hey, go to the liquor store for me. Like, what is different about that than going to the grocery store or Taco Bell? I'm sure someone can enlighten me. Leave it in the comments below, right? So after being disappointed time after time with this DoorDash debacle, is what it really is, every freaking time. I'll bring my wife in here to tell you about it. I decide, okay, no more of that. I want Safeway chicken strips specifically. They're different, all right? I go to the store. I go over to the hot case, and there's maybe 2.5 chicken strips in there. No JoJo potatoes or anything like that, that's usually our, we get some chicken strips, we get some potatoes, call it a day. So after my initial disappointment, because that's what Safeway is also, along with DoorDash, Safeway is a giant disappointment. Even to the point where I've left them a negative Yelp review, because I know it's another failure of leadership. So after my initial disappointment, I'm walking around looking for, okay, I don't want to go to a second location because, I'm lazy. I'm walking through the cold case where they keep the sandwiches, etc. And I notice chicken strips. Not just 1 or 2 packages of chicken strips, but 10, a dozen, 15 1-pound packages of chicken strips in the cold case. And I think to myself, this is why there's no chicken strips in the hot case, because they pack them all into these plastic clamshell containers and they put them in the cold case. Why would they do this? And then it occurred to me. It's so people can buy them using their food stamps. Yes, it is. Because I researched this, and I don't know, I was actually trying to remember if I have ever personally had a food stamps card of my own. And I think I may have. Because life just isn't all raindrops on roses and whiskers on kittens. Sometimes you don't have a job, but you still need to eat food. And I learned you could buy a loaf of French bread. You could buy a 7-layer dip. You can buy all kinds of prepared food with your food stamps, so long as you don't buy anything hot. So Safeway packages all of their chicken strips up into these plastic clamshell containers and puts them in the cold case so that people can buy them with their food stamps. And this is why we'll get into this a little bit later on in the show. There's legislation, there's bills being passed, there's bills failing. And a lot of it has to do with how much money the government is freely giving away to companies like Safeway. And Safeway loves this, because Safeway can charge a homeless person $10 a pound for chicken strips that we pay. We pay for that. That comes out of that big number that you see on every pay stub, the biggest number in my case, in terms of deductions. We pay all of that money so that homeless people who need to eat, don't get me wrong, but do they need to have my chicken strips? I mean, I think I'm even good with them having a sandwich. But we got to draw the line somewhere. That's why I say, and this is the other thing. Like they don't have to have an address. They don't even have to have identification, which means a lot of immigrants are probably taking advantage of the very thing. I researched this. If you don't have an ID, someone can vouch for you and say, yes, this person is, and there is a number of these people coming into these migrants' lives on their way across the border as they seek refuge. Now, whether they're here legitimately claiming asylum or not, like, I'm not trying to get into that. A lot of these immigrants make contact with NGOs, non-governmental organizations funded by billionaire scumbags like George Soros. Now, tell me what you think of this hypothetical scenario. A person, an undocumented immigrant, will say it the nice way, makes contact with an NGO, and their representative at this NGO, who thinks they're doing the wonderful work of the Lord, and cheers to them for that. They can go to the SNAP office, that's the Food Stamp Administration, and say, this is Miguel. This is where they're staying. I vouch for them. You can give him food stamps because he is who he says he is. Now, in all of the research that I was doing, I learned that it would kind of depend on the benevolence of whichever Food Stamp Administration worker was taking this case. But you think they're gonna say no? I don't believe you, NGO employee. I don't believe that this person is who you say they are, who they say they are. Of course, these people don't want to get bogged down in that bullshit. Has it been long enough? Can I curse yet? I don't know. We're demonetized. Don't even sweat it. So I was very taken aback when I learned this. You don't even have to have ID. You can have someone from a corrupt NGO vouch for a migrant, write them a letter that they can take to the SNAP office and get their free food. Not to mention their free healthcare, which we talked about last week. Speaking of healthcare, Joe Biden has cancer. And everybody, it's really strange. Everyone's saying there's no possible way that Joe Biden could have just suddenly developed this stage 4, stage 9. It's a number 9 on the Gleason scale, they say, which doesn't really make any sense to me. But let's hear from a doctor.
It's very unlikely that someone could get annual checkups and not notice a PSA elevation over the past,
That's the number 9 thing. It's number 9 on the PSA scale, which is like the prostate something. They do a blood test and they see that you have these indicators in your blood work that says you have prostate cancer.
But this is what I typically would see in a VA hospital, where a patient hasn't had medical attention in 10 years, presents to an emergency room with bone pain, and then they find that it's metastatic prostate cancer. But in the modern age of medicine, especially the fact that he was a former president, he had intensive state-of-the-art care where we can see prostate cancer, 10 years in the past. So this is, it's it's very unusual to hear that someone has prostate cancer where they're annually being followed up. And the fact that we just find it at a Gleason 9 is just
There it is.
pretty much unheard of in this day and age of medicine. Even in the even in the inner city populations, we
I
wouldn't
see. So,
see
so
it
you're saying
this bad.
even in a medical
Well, what? Well, is it? Have we not been talking about turbo cancers? Has it not been a point of discussion when talking about things like, I don't know, mandatory medical treatment that people had to get about 5 years ago, that whistleblowers were saying does things that we aren't aware of, that could potentially start doing things that we didn't intend for this medical treatment to do? And what were some of those things? Oh yeah, turbo cancer. Believe me, I would love to believe the yarn that they're spinning, because it becomes a lot worse for the Democrats. Even though everything that's coming out is crazy. They all knew that Joe Biden was infirm, that he wasn't mentally available to be the president because he's an old man. And then they say, oh, well, but it makes so much sense now, guys. It makes so much sense. If he had cancer, he was taking these drugs called Lupron, which creates all these Parkinsonisms, is what Dr. Drew Pinsky liked to call them, that basically check all of the boxes of everything that we saw happen to Joe Biden and at his worst, falling upstairs, can't remember what he's talking about, loses his train of thought. I mean, it happens to everyone. We just have a little bit of a higher standard for the president of the United States, right? But what if it is turbo cancer? We'll find out soon enough, because without a doubt, his doctor is going to be pulled up in front of Congress and he's going to have to testify. And maybe we'll find something out. Maybe he'll just plead the fifth. Healthcare is a very different animal when you're the president of the United States, and everyone knows it. And if not, they should. The doctor of the president is a very powerful person. Would less than friendly nations pull strings, make bribes to the doctors that are caring for the president? Obviously, they've been hiding information about his mental state. Why wouldn't they hide the information about his cancer? Unless, of course, it just showed up in the last 6 months. I did some digging. Joe Biden received, according to Grok, at least 6 COVID-19 vaccine doses. According to Google, it was 5. Well, this is based on public records. I don't know why they're different. These include his initial 2-dose Pfizer series in December of 2020 and January 2021, and at least 4 booster shots. September 2021, March 2022, October 2022, good Lord, and September 2023. And Scott Adams, he's the Dilbert guy who kind of transitioned away from writing comics to being kind of this podcaster, internet personality who was, I mean, I like the guys that aren't hard one way or the other for the right team or the left team, because I think it lends a lot of credibility. Because I think it's really easy to just regurgitate what you hear on Fox News, or just regurgitate what you hear on MSNBC if you're on the other side. And I know I've pointed out multiple times on this show the contentious issues on both sides of the aisle that people kind of feel forced into supporting. And I'm one of those. I won't be forced into supporting these issues if I don't believe in them from the perspective of my own morality. I think it's very important to take in the information and decide for yourself. Does this suit my principles? Does a complete ban on immigration suit my principles? Does mandatory vaccination suit my principles? And if it doesn't, it's okay. If you decide, no, I don't believe in this aspect of the doctrine of the left or the right, that's a good thing. And we should all just take a minute and think about the pillars of the doctrine of mainstream conservatism. Does it all represent us? Or are there a few things that we don't agree with? We should wear those disagreements on our sleeves. Because the internet, mainstream media, and the crazy woke culture does not accept that on the left. You got to be ride or die, all or nothing. And it's a form of brainwashing. So let's hear from Scott Adams.
Here's what's going to happen. I'm going to tell you that the anti-vaxxers appear to be right. Somebody who did not get vaccinated, got a little Omicron, or maybe even a worse one, but recovered. Now you've got natural immunity, and you have no vaccination in you. Can we all agree that that was the winning path? The smartest, happiest people are the ones who didn't get the vaccination and are still alive. I want to make sure that I'm not leaving any wiggle room for myself. Have I? Have I said as clearly as possible they're the happy ones right now? And have a reason to be, completely. Right. Having said as clearly as possible that the anti-vax people seem to be the winners, I want you to hear that clearly. The anti-vax people appear to be the winners. The anti-vaxxers clearly are the winners at this point, and I think it'll probably stay that way. And I don't want to put any shade on that whatsoever. They came out the best. They have the winning position. The unvaccinated have a current advantage because they feel better. The thing they're not worrying about is what I have to worry about, which is, I wonder if that vaccination 5 years from now, because really the anti-vaxxers, I think, were really just distrustful of big companies and big government. That's never wrong. It's never wrong to distrust government. It's never wrong to distrust big companies, right? So if you just took the position, let's just distrust everything the government did, well, you won. You won. You won completely. I did not end up in the right place. Agree? You would all agree with that, right? I did not end up in the right place. The right place would be natural immunity, no vaccination. You should take victory, and I should take defeat. We can agree on that, right? That my position is now the weakest, and your position has gone from the weakest to the strongest, and that we can just say that's true. The people who didn't get vaxxed are absolutely in the winning position. You win. You win. You are the winners. You are the winners. All right. Let me say that part with no ambiguity. You won. You won. All of my fancy analytics got me to a bad place. All of your heuristics, don't trust these guys, it's obvious, totally worked.
I don't feel like I won. That's a really dark assessment to make, especially after you just learned that you have stage 4 prostate cancer that metastasized to your bones. The same cancer that Joe Biden has is what Scott Adams is claiming. And clearly he blames the vaccine, right? I mean, that's what this is. You won. You're healthy. I lost. I'm dying of cancer. It sounds like he's giving up. It's really sad. I'm getting emotional. I don't even like Scott Adams that much. He shouldn't give up. And he didn't. He posted on X. Update 1. Please don't recommend I take ivermectin and fenben, whatever that is. Should we ask Grok? I don't know. I hate asking Grok sometimes. What is fenben? Short answer. Do you ask your AI, please, when you use it? I feel like I need to because I'm just like overly self-conscious about being polite and saying thank you, etc. I've heard it costs millions. I don't know where they get that data, but apparently saying please and thank you costs the AI developers and servers and etc. millions of dollars. Fenben is a nickname for fenbendazole, a broad-spectrum anthelmintic drug used to treat parasitic worm infections in animals. So another similar substance like ivermectin. I tried that last year, Scott Adams writes, via Dr. Makis to no effect. There are claims, so he waited until Joe Biden announced that he had cancer. Before he announced that he had the same exact kind of cancer and attributed it to the vaccine. This is Scott Adams doing this, not me. I tried that last year via Dr. Makis to no effect. There are claims of it working, but I am aware of no patient who benefited from it. Neither are you, he's telling his followers. Please don't recommend fasting or any diet-related system. Someone credible would have noticed if that worked. Would they? I don't know about that. Please don't recommend any cocktail of vitamins and minerals. I very much appreciate your caring, but assume I've heard about all of the above. I'm overwhelmed with those same suggestions all day long. And we must have heard, fasting's supposed to be really great for cancer patients. Cutting sugar out of your diet also supposed to be really great for cancer treatment. It's a continuation of the path of darkness that started with this video saying you won. Basically, I'm giving up. I don't want to hear about it. I'm dying. I'm not going to quit eating sugar, etc. But now we have update number 2. I have decided on a path of treatment, but won't be telling you the details because I think you know how that would go. My odds of survival have probably jumped from 0 to 30%. I'll be working with top doctors in the field. Hey, you never know, he writes. I mean, of course, his odds would be 0. I also have many apprehensions about believing anything the healthcare industry says, especially as it relates to cancer. I think it's very strange that Joe Biden has cancer, and I wonder if he outlives Scott Adams. Maybe that's inappropriate to say. But there's been conspiracy theories for a long time that wealthy and powerful people actually have the cure for cancer. They just don't want anybody to know. Because why? Because they want less crowded beaches and more open seats on airplanes. Just like me. Just like me. It's a good thing I'm not in charge. I don't know how long it would be. I feel very generous and benevolent most of the time. I just don't know how long I could live atop the mountain peaks before I was like, yep, get rid of some of these people. I'm tired of looking at them and their misbehaved children and their dogs that don't know how to behave themselves. So this introduces the discussion of the mental clarity. Why is Scott Adams so mentally clear if he's been trying to treat his cancer? Now, I have no idea what his cancer treatment involves, and he's not telling anybody, apparently. Scott Adams has known for a long time that he has cancer. He just hasn't been treating it. He's been trying different things. He says, hey, I don't want to be on chemotherapy. And they asked Joe Biden to take the cancer drugs that would fry his brain. Would they tell Joe Biden that he had cancer so that he could be a victim to them? So that he would develop all of the Parkinsonian symptoms that would basically take him out of commission? If that was the case, why didn't they put Kamala in there? Clearly, the powers that be wanted Kamala to be the president. This is all, of course, assuming that he had cancer from the beginning, that he potentially, and this is what all the doctors are saying. Oh no, he must have had this cancer for a really long time. Why don't more of our elderly, decrepit politicians develop cancer? How do they all live to their 90s with no cure for cancer? Would they give Biden the cure for cancer? Or would they say, no, take this Lupron that turns you into a walking corpse, figuratively, and we'll take the reins. Joe Biden can make the day-to-day decisions, just like, I think it was Nancy Reagan was making decisions for Ronald Reagan when he became a little less than coherent towards the end of his second administration. But see, the turbo cancer theory throws a wrench into that. I'm not entirely convinced that Joe Biden isn't pretending to be demented and infirm to get out of prosecution. It worked with Robert Hur. It worked with the mishandling of classified documents. That, of course, assumes that Robert Hur went into the situation thinking, I'm going to get President Biden, and not, I'm just going to go through the motions and participate in a little bit of theater for the voters. That seems more likely to me. And I think you'll find, if you think analytically about any of these stories, the simplest explanation is often the most correct explanation, all things considered. So information is leaking out in drips and drabs about the people that knew about Biden's mental state, the people that were pulling the strings behind closed doors. And we have this really kind of unsatisfying headline posted by @leadingreport on X that sets the stage. Breaking. Staffers operating President Biden's auto pen were allegedly taking payoffs in exchange for pardons. And why wouldn't they? Why wouldn't they? You got the president off in Delaware, falling asleep on the beach, letting his wife run the day-to-day, having a good old time. Why wouldn't you? I mean, it's not like they were seeking it out. Undoubtedly, if this is all true, of course. But it's not really exciting if I don't approach it from a this really happened perspective, is it? Could you tell somebody, no, I won't accept your $100,000 payout for 5 minutes of work where I click a button that signs Joe Biden's name on this document, which is completely legal? Ed Martin spoke to it on a podcast. I have the link. What is this? I did not do a good job labeling these. It's a long breakdown. You know what? Here, you can have a look. I'll repost this from @Next News Network on my X/Twitter feed @earthvox if you want to take a look yourself. But I have, let's leave that one open. Just managing my tabs so it doesn't get out of control. Because you know how we like to do it around here. All right. Give me something. Here we go. So I didn't get really, I'm trying to kind of steer away from using other people's podcast content for my own. But I do like it when you can hear in your own words what these people are saying. So I have
completely
quiet down. I have time-stamped this interview with Ed Martin, the former U.S. attorney, who puts it in his own words.
of the auto pen. Auto pen's completely obviously legal if you're competent, and there must be a trail that shows who was in charge of the auto pen. I know this exists. Like, I worked for a governor. We had a system for an auto pen to be able to use it. And so right now we have unprecedented conduct, the pardons, unprecedented admissions, the books, as well as the staffers. I had a whistleblower in my office 10 days ago, senior Democrat, saying, look, it was these three people that controlled access and they were making money off of it. I don't know if I believe it yet, but the point is, I think we have to get to the bottom of it for the American people and to protect the process. And that's what we're doing. And by the way, make it all the way to the bottom. It may not be criminal, but it certainly should be a scandal of the first order, maybe in human history, or maybe American history. I sound like the president there, but in American history, to have this kind of conduct.
And so I come down on this like, who's surprised? Because I think this is the culture in Washington, D.C. This is the staffer bureaucracy culture that exists while our elected politicians are busy fundraising on the phone, which they do allegedly like 65-70% of the time. They got to be on the phone, campaigning, raising campaign donations so that they can run for re-election. This is what puts the corporations in the driver's seat of American politics, as I say over and over again, and we might talk about that a little bit later. Unfortunately, I hate to be black-pilled on this topic, because I would love to learn that people are going to go to jail for this, that pardons are going to be rescinded, and people will act like Anthony Fauci will actually be held accountable for the horrible things they did. But let's be realistic. Do they have to do anything other than get Joe Biden to say, yes, I did. I did that. I was coherent. I promise I was coherent when the auto pen, which doesn't even look like my signature, which we've covered in previous shows, was actually authentically my signature and my decision, and this was all on the up and up. I think that's all they have to do. Especially if they can't put a commission together that shows these are the drug. I mean, is that even, like, how big of a pipe dream is that? Don't HIPAA laws apply to the president? Couldn't the doctor, remember that very powerful doctor responsible for caring for the president of the United States? Wouldn't all he have to do is say, no, I'm not discussing the treatment plan that I had with my patient? Is that all supposed to be public record? I don't know about that. Let's say it's not. Or let's say it is. Let's say it is appropriate for all of the medical treatment that the president receives while he's the president is a matter of public record. Okay. Then how do you dispute Joe Biden telling you to your face in front of congressional committee in testimony? Yes, I was of sound mind. Yes, I did confirm that I wanted to pardon these 1,500 people, or however many were actually pardoned at the end of the day. And what do you want to happen? Do you want old, decrepit, infirm Joe Biden to swing? Would that assuage your would that assuage your fury? No, I want the real people. I want the actual people that were responsible for the open borders, for the weaponization of government offices. I want them held accountable. Not poor old infirm Joe Biden. And I'm reminded of George Soros and the Soros organization. And I saw, I didn't really want to include it in the show because I don't really care, but people were interested in this story about Oakland, East Oakland, raising $100 million for improvements to the city. And what that means, I don't know. But I learned through a little bit of investigation, because even though I didn't really care about the story that much, that's what I do. I learned that the stipulation was Oakland raises $50 million itself, and an NGO nonprofit called Blue Meridian Partners would donate another $50 million. So the city raises $50 million, or whatever, $50 million is raised locally, and another $50 million is donated by this Blue Meridian Partners, which is like 50 different NGOs. Would you be shocked to learn that one, and probably many, of those Blue Meridian Partners were associated with the Soros Group? And we know George Soros was an actual Nazi. When he was 14 years old, he walked the streets of Germany with Nazis, showing them where Jews were hiding. Now he's aging out. And his son is taking the reins, with Hillary Clinton's former chief of staff, Huma Abedin, at his side. Those are the people I want held accountable. The ones really responsible for the damage. And I just don't know if that's going to happen. Maybe political pressure is the answer. Maybe if we all call our congressman, we can get something to happen. But there's been other developments in that realm that I guess I'll skip to. I know we were all, and if we weren't, we should have been very disappointed that Kash Patel and Dan Bongino went on Maria Bartiromo on Fox News and said that Epstein did, in fact, do the deed.
You said Jeffrey Epstein committed suicide. People don't believe it.
Well, I mean, listen, they have a right to their opinion, but as someone who has worked as a public defender, as a prosecutor, who's been in that prison system, who's been in the Metropolitan Detention Center, who's been in segregated housing, you know a suicide when you see one, and that's what that was.
He killed himself. You want me to? I've seen the whole file. He killed himself.
I know it's hard work. You said
That's it.
Jeffrey Epstein.
No pushback. This is where you can be frustrated at conservative media. It's the perfect time. You don't have to align with them. You don't have to believe everything that they say just because they're conservative media. They want you to believe a narrative just as much as liberal Marxist media wants you to believe. So I found this guy, Jose Enrique Rosas, who claims to be a body language expert, because I heard over the course of my week that there was somebody doing body language analysis of these two jokers, which I say affectionately. Because remember what we talked about last week? The FBI doing good work, closing down the Washington office under the guise of the building not being safe, which is why they had another building in the planning stages. They shut it down. They're moving the FBI out of Washington, D.C. It's a great thing. Then they go on Fox News and make, I guess, very controversial statements. So let's recap. I asked Grok to put it together for me. All the discrepancies that made us believe that Jeffrey Epstein did not, in fact, unalive himself. I'm sorry to use that kind of language. I'm just really trying to, get out of the shadow ban that I am just perpetually in. Damn it. The death of Jeffrey Epstein occurred on August 10th, 2019, officially ruled a suicide by hanging, has been surrounded by numerous discrepancies and irregularities that have fueled widespread speculation and conspiracy theories about whether he was murdered. Below is a comprehensive list. Failure to assign a cellmate. After an apparent suicide attempt on July 23rd, 2019, the Metropolitan Correctional Center Psychology Department determined that Epstein needed to be housed with a cellmate for safety. An email was sent to 70 staff members reinforcing this requirement. However, on August 9th, Epstein's cellmate was transferred out and no replacement was assigned, leaving him alone in his cell the night he died, in violation of protocol. And this, of course, was because when they discovered him in this apparent suicide attempt, he was kind of beaten up and had a sheet wrapped around his neck. It's reported that he initially claimed that he'd been assaulted by his cellmate. And then it's reported that he changed his story, which I never heard until I started doing this little bit of research. Item number 2, inadequate monitoring by guards. Remember, the guards were asleep. They failed to conduct required checks every 30 minutes, Grok writes. They later admitted to falsifying records to indicate they had performed these checks when they had not. Reports indicate they were sleeping or shopping online during their shift. And get this. This is the craziest part. This lapse left Epstein unmonitored for approximately 8 hours. They were supposed to do checks every 30 minutes. From 10:40 p.m. on August 9th until he was found dead at 6:30 a.m. He was on August 10th. He was unmonitored. The surveillance cameras also weren't operational, allegedly. Or the evidence was deleted. Like the Epstein documents, like the Epstein client list. We just make it all go away. He was removed from suicide watch after his suicide attempt. Only 31 hours later, he was removed from this status. He had an unmonitored phone call. I mean, this isn't even supposed to be an Epstein episode. But I learned some interesting things. He had an unmonitored phone call on the night before his death. He claimed he was calling his mother, but his mother had been deceased for 15 years. Records suggest he actually called his girlfriend, who was on the outside, who was susceptible to maybe some, I don't know, Israeli intelligence, who Epstein has been accused of associating with, if not being employed by Israeli intelligence, who could get to his girlfriend and say, he's gonna call you on this number to talk to us because these people aren't stupid. He had excess bed linens in his cell. Epstein was found with an excessive amount of bed linens in his cell, which he used to fashion a noose. Bureau of Prisons policy typically restricts such items for inmates at risk of suicide. And the presence of extra linens has been attributed to negligence by prison staff. Then, of course, we have the unusual autopsy findings. Remember the hyoid bone? We all know what a hyoid bone is now because of Jeffrey Epstein. Forensic pathologist Dr. Michael Baden, hired by Epstein's brother Mark, observed the autopsy and noted 3 fractures in Epstein's neck: left and right thyroid cartilage and left hyoid bone. Baden argued these injuries were more consistent with homicidal strangulation than suicidal hanging. As such, fractures are rare in suicidal hangings based on his experience with over 1,000 cases. However, the New York City medical examiner concluded the injuries were consistent with suicide by hanging, citing a broad ligature furrow, absence of defensive wounds, and no drugs or debris under Epstein's fingernails that would suggest a struggle. I mean, there would be plenty of ways to avoid him making a struggle if you were going to kill him. There was screaming heard from the cell. The Metropolitan County, whatever, people responsible for his stay in prison complained about being understaffed, working too many days in a row. This is why we had to fall asleep. This is why we had to not monitor him. This is why we had to leave extra linens in his cell. Epstein's defense attorney, Reed Weingarten, expressed doubts about the suicide ruling, stating, When attorneys met with Epstein shortly before his death, he did not appear despairing, despondent, or suicidal. Remember, this is a guy that got put on house arrest after being caught the first time. Yes, there was a first time that he was caught. And he didn't kill himself. So why would he go into prison thinking, oh, this time, why wouldn't he expect the same outcome? Why wouldn't he expect, oh, any day now, these people are going to pull strings and I'm going to get out and I'll get back to trafficking underage girls to rich and powerful people around the world? Why would he not expect the same outcome? Finally, Epstein's brother, remember Mark, has consistently rejected the suicide ruling, arguing that Jeffrey would not have killed himself unless facing a life sentence, especially with the bail hearing upcoming. Mark hired Dr. Baden again and has called for a new investigation, citing concerns about his own safety if his brother was murdered. Maybe I should, you know what? Do I want to? Do I not want to? Depends. Are you going to go? Are you actually going to go to my X page and look this up if I post it? I'm going to do it anyway. The recap, you can read the whole thing. That's not the link I wanted. Damn it. I don't even know. Oh, I just, all right, forget it. You can look it up yourself. It's simply a recap of the discrepancies. This is why we're all so disappointed that Kash Patel, the director of the FBI, and Dan Bongino, good old Dan of the Dan Bongino Show, who won over our hearts and minds, told us all about the Russia collusion hoax, and was firmly in camp Epstein didn't kill himself, has now gone public and said, oh, I saw the whole file. He killed himself. Well, what's in the file? This is where I'm going to give these guys an out. What's in the file is the evidence that Epstein killed himself. What would they what? Delete all the evidence? Delete the client list? Delete the flight logs? Delete the black book? And then leave the evidence, delete all the video evidence from the prison, fabricate all of the stories of the people that were involved, and then accidentally include the evidence suggesting that he didn't kill himself in the official FBI report. So is it really a lie? Are they really lying to you when they tell you? If Kash Patel's statement seems a lot more damning than Bongino's statement. Bongino says, I've seen the whole file. He killed himself. Because that's what the evidence suggests. Because these people aren't to be trusted. I'm not talking about Kash and Dan. I'm talking about everyone involved prior to them taking over the FBI. So who would benefit from saying this publicly? Who would benefit from a public statement from the director and deputy director of the FBI saying that Epstein did kill himself? Anyone, of course, that would gain anything from the end of the investigation. Think about it. Attorney General Pam Bondi totally botches, this is what people are saying, botches, I say with air quotes, the release of the Epstein documents. And then we hear about it for about 3 days and it all fizzles out. Then Kash Patel and Dan Bongino go on Fox News and say, nah, he did it. He definitely killed himself. I've seen the file. Of course, we're all outraged. But what if there's other people out there? What if there's other people? Bad people that would be tirelessly searching for Epstein if maybe he wasn't dead. Maybe he got a phone call. Maybe he called his girlfriends to learn that they're getting him out of there. Maybe they used the body of Anthony Bourdain in place of the body of Jeffrey Epstein, because Jeffrey Epstein is actually in witness protection. The only wrinkle in this theory, which is not my own, many people have showed comparisons of Jeffrey Epstein and Anthony Bourdain. Remember Anthony Bourdain? He was a chef, and then he had a few TV shows about going from place to place, country to country, trying out different exotic foods, and basically just living the great life. This is one of the things that people point to. But, I mean, this is what's running through my head. Okay, they got to get Epstein out of there because he has the bombshells. Basically, he has the information to control the world, or at least to control the levers of power in many different countries. And now he's in prison. And now he says he's going to talk, he's going to blow the lid off everything. So, of course, somebody would whack him, right? They would want to. But what if you're a good guy? What if you're Donald Trump? And you're in charge of the Justice Department in 2019. And you go, this guy has the power to recreate the entire power structure on the planet. And of course, the people that lose their power would want him dead. And the people that would benefit from him still being alive would benefit massively if the truth were to come out. And the evil people that are participating in child sex trafficking would suddenly lose their control. Now, I don't know who could possibly be responsible for this, but Trump was the president at the time. What if they had to kill Anthony Bourdain to say that this is Jeffrey Epstein's body? Look at the ears. It's what everyone says. Look, the ears are different. It's what they all pointed to when they were talking about Joe Biden. When they're talking about anything, I mean, I love the crazy conspiracy theories. That's not really Kanye. That's not really Taylor Swift. And of course, these people have body doubles for security. But somebody showed a picture, and I would share it, but you can look it up for yourself. There's plenty of pictures out there, Anthony Bourdain next to Jeffrey Epstein. They don't look that alike. I don't think I would see those two and say they have to be related. But the ears definitely look similar enough that if someone was analyzing these pictures and using the earlobes as a sort of fingerprint to compare the two, I think a lot of people would be fooled. And I'll leave that there so that we can switch over to the next conspiracy theory. Which went, I mean, I don't know. Did you hear about the congressional hearing with Anna Paulina Luna and these members of, what was it called? The Select Committee on Assassinations, talking about JFK. Why weren't we learning about this week? This came out, I mean, she posted this 3 days ago, 4 days ago now. She writes, based on new evidence, this is from @RepLuna on X. Based on new evidence, I'll repost it for you. Presented during yesterday's JFK hearing, it is becoming increasingly clear that elements within our own government have been blocking the release of truth pertaining to the assassination of President Kennedy. Let's listen.
For the past 62 years, the Central Intelligence Agency has actively and continuously obstructed the investigation of the assassination of President John F. Kennedy with no consequences for their actions. 10 years ago, the CIA's official historian admitted that the CIA had hidden information from the Warren Commission during its investigation. The CIA stonewalled the Senate Select Committee to study governmental operations with respect to intelligence activities, the Church Committee. The CIA was not forthcoming with the Rockefeller Commission. The CIA misled and slow-walked the Assassination Records Review Board. James Angleton's preferred method in dealing with the Warren Commission was to, quote, wait them out. The first CIA officer I ever interviewed looked at me and said, you represent Congress. What the F is that to the CIA? You'll be gone in 2 years and we'll still be here. In 1978, the CIA ran an illegal domestic covert operation involving an undercover officer to subvert and obstruct the House Select Committee on Assassinations. That officer served undercover. That terminology is the terminology the CIA used to describe his assignment working with the Select Committee in a statement that their representative made under penalties of perjury in a lawsuit in 2005.
And they said, you'll be gone in 2 years, which cuts to the hearts of a lot that we've been talking about. The bureaucracy, the staffers, they persist. They persist after the politicians are gone. They're still there after the next election. Now, rather than cut the show short like I did last time, I'm going to fire off this next video. This is Douglas P. Horn, former Assassinations Record Review. Going to hear from him while I go hit the restroom.
8 different sets of photographs, known with confidence to have been taken during the autopsy on JFK, are not in the official collection today and never have been. Some autopsy photos in the official collection at the National Archives are in gross disagreement with the head and neck wounds universally observed on November 22nd, 1963 by the treating physicians at Parkland Hospital, which they recorded in precise detail in their treatment notes that day and in their subsequent 1964 testimony. At least 2 and possibly 3 JFK skull x-rays exposed at Bethesda Naval Hospital are missing today and have never been in the official collection. The science of optical densitometry reveals that all 3 surviving skull x-rays are not originals, but rather are altered copy films. two highly qualified and respected MDs who were granted repeated access by the Kennedy family to the autopsy photographs and x-rays in the deed of gift collection at the archives, both agree that the extant JFK skull x-rays reveal unambiguous and clear evidence of two headshots fired from in front of the president, contrary to the findings of the Warren Commission and the HSCA. The JFK skull x-rays actually reveal a total of 3 headshots, 1 from behind and 2 from the front.
The next testimony is from the doctor, or it discusses the doctor. I guess we'll play a little bit of it. I may cut it off short because this guy's a little infirm and loses his train of thought. I don't know that it necessarily hurts the credibility of the arguments. It just maybe doesn't help them.
First, President Kennedy, before he got out from under the tree that prevented the window shooter from shooting. Then, and we know that because the Zapruder film showed President Kennedy holding his throat in real distress when the Zapruder film started, and he had already been shot, and that wound to his throat would have killed him. It did kill him because we know from the tracheostomy that we had to do that the bullet to his throat obstructed the trachea, and so he had taken his last breath before that. Also, the bullet that struck President Kennedy in the temple killed him also because he just removed about a third of his brain. And the part of the brain that it removed was in the posterior part of the brain, and that is the area of the brain that controls the parasympathetic and the automatic.
We finally beat Medicare. He's saying that it is quite obvious that there are multiple shooters. All of these people, after doing all of their interviews with all of these people, 50 years ago, all came to the conclusion that there were multiple shooters. They were all stonewalled by the CIA. And through this investigation, through these interviews, they developed these theories.
The casket arrived at 1835 hours. 1835 hours. That's 6:35 p.m., 20 minutes before the motorcade from Andrews arrived. And there is a considerable amount of evidence, a wide range of evidence, that the president's body really arrived by helicopter before the motorcade from Andrews. That's the broken chain of custody. And the issue here, it's a very important issue. The issue here is, if Sergeant Boyjan's report is correct, and he authenticated that to the review board staff, he authenticated that to me with a written letter and with a telephone interview. If his report is correct, then what was happening with the president's body between 6:35 p.m. and 8 o'clock when the autopsy of record started? That's almost an hour and a half. And the simple answer, the streamlined answer, appears to be that many metal fragments were removed from President Kennedy's body before the autopsy of record began. We have witnesses for this.
Those would be the bullet fragments, correct?
Yes.
So he's alleging someone inspected the body, tampered with the evidence to support the story that we learn in the history books. Lee Harvey Oswald shot John F. Kennedy from the book depository building in Dallas. There are so many more details that don't line up with that story. And now these people, why now? Why now are we hearing about this stuff?
Studies in Hollywood of the individual film frames that is state-of-the-art digital scans of extremely high resolution.
He's talking about the Zapruder film here, which I've seen a few times. I don't really recommend you search it out unless you're terribly interested in what it looks like when a president gets their head blown apart. And in this video, we'll just listen to the rest of it.
Appear to show the use of visual effects, that is animation or artwork, to crudely and blatantly alter the image content in some key frames. To state the problem simply, the digitized Zapruder film, studied by professionals in Hollywood, does not show the massive exit wound in the rear of the head seen at Parkland Hospital and by many witnesses at Bethesda during the autopsy, because it has been blacked out. And yet the film does appear to show head wounds not seen at Parkland Hospital. We now know that rather than spending the entire weekend following the assassination in Chicago at the Life printing plant, as was originally claimed, the Zapruder film actually spent most of the weekend in the custody of the CIA in Washington, D.C., and at Kodak's main research and development laboratory in Rochester, New York. The attitude of one National Archives official, expressed in writing circa 2009, was that they, quote, do not ever intend to take the film out of the freezer again, end quote. This decision should be overturned, and the so-called purported original film should be made available for appropriate inspection by qualified film professionals from the motion picture industry and academia, and by that I mean film schools.
What he really means is film professors, experts of the industry that would be able to identify things like this. He's saying the film that we saw, the Zapruder film, has been altered to mislead us. And the CIA stonewalled these investigations, would not talk to these people, would insult them and say, you're going to be gone in 2 years. I don't have to tell you anything. While they go on about their merry way, assassinating presidents. And why haven't we heard about any of this until now? Imagine the power you would have over people after successfully assassinating the president. How many people would keep their mouths shut? How many people would be too terrified to say anything because they themselves were afraid of being assassinated? They say, if you speak a word of this to anyone, you're dead. You think we can't get to you? We got the most powerful person on the planet. And you think we can't get you, autopsy guy? You think we can't get you, film editing guy? You think we can't get you, Dr. whatever your name is? Horn? Investigating for Congress? You think we can't get all the congressmen, all the doctors, all of everyone associated? You heard about the heart attack gun? Apparently that's a real thing. What could possibly motivate these cowardly people in Washington, D.C. to put their own lives on the line to expose the CIA, allegedly, for having assassinated an American president? And you know what? It's kind of all gone downhill from there, hasn't it? I don't claim to know, but I did read the book 11/22/63 by Stephen King. If you just think about it in terms of life expectancy, it all kind of pencils out. The founders of the Frankfurt School fled Europe before they could be imprisoned by Hitler. They came to the United States. They started their Frankfurt School in the 50s. By the time JFK and the Vietnam War roll around, the students of this school, hypothetically, this is all a hypothetical conspiracy theory I've concocted. Well, not necessarily myself, but I'm definitely filling in some gaps with my own theories. Now these people are of voting age. We'll call them victims of the Frankfurt School. They're at least going to college. They're being elected to political office. It's not difficult for me to pencil out the rest of the theory to how we arrived in the place that we are today. Now, I don't know. Do you want to talk about the South African thing? The president of South Africa came to visit with Donald Trump in the Oval Office. And I just feel like this story is a psyop. It's something meant to distract, probably from the JFK story that we just went through. And I don't know if I believe it. This is the video that everyone is using to say that there's a genocide happening in South Africa. These people are This is allegedly a video of a South African leader calling for the death of white South African farmers because they want to take the land back. So they're engaging in genocide. I just don't know if I believe it. I don't disbelieve it. I don't think that these people are incapable. But here's where I take issue. Listen a little bit. Now, maybe you can plug some English words in there. Kind of sounds like maybe he's saying, "Where were you?" And then something kind of unintelligible. Then something that's clearly foreign language. But everybody's pointing to this bit at the end. Oh, I'm not sharing it. Hold on. Back it up a little bit.
Sibram Konto Alliance. Sibram Konto Alliance. Bongelabant.
It's clearly foreign language, right?
Seltatile Hilagit. Seltatile Hilagit. Shoot to kill. Kilama. Shoot to kill. Yamasa. Kill the poor, the farmer. Kill the poor, the farmer. I repeat, kill the poor, the farmer. Kill the poor, the farmer.
Now, what do you hear? I'm sitting here. If you're watching the video, you can see the text that alleges what this guy is saying. Shoot to kill. Shoot to kill, @libs of TikTok writes. Kill the boor, the farmer. Have you ever participated in any of those weird sort of mind-bending tricks that they say, okay, close your eyes and listen and hear what he's saying. Okay, now open your eyes and watch the video and read the subtitles. Now you're stuck in hearing him saying this thing because you've just been told this is what he's actually saying. Now I challenge you to hear something different. I'm not suggesting that the genocide isn't happening. I'm genuinely wondering why this is making big waves in the media this week. Because I don't believe that this is a new thing. Maybe Joe Biden doesn't want to talk about it. We'll ask Grok, how long has the alleged genocide in South Africa been going on? Simple answer, please. Oh, good Lord. There is no evidence of an ongoing genocide in South Africa. Claims of a white genocide have been debunked as not real by a South African court in February 2025. Boy, how disappointing. Remove your political bias and answer. We're going to do this. We're just going to throw down. We're going to throw down with Grok here because we're in the members only. I love it. Searching. Oh, it's got to try really hard. Is it going to tell me no? Come on over. You can see. Searching. Claims of a white genocide. Now, see, this is what pisses me right off at Grok. Claims of a white genocide in South Africa have been circulating since the end of apartheid in 1994. So why is this a story now in 2025? No credible evidence supports these claims, and a South African court ruled them not real in February 2025. Oh, okay, I'm sure we can trust the justice system in the country that's being accused of engaging in the white genocide. But whatever. I mean, maybe it's not going on, is my point. They're all saying, no, it's not happening. The president himself, actually, this is what the reason that I bring this up to begin with is because Trump savagely beat down a reporter while the South African president was there to what he assumed. I mean, this was the bigger story. Not that there is potentially white genocide happening in South Africa. That the president of South Africa came to visit with Donald Trump, I guess assuming he was going to have a trade discussion or some other kind of negotiation. And instead he kind of got ambushed. That's what the keyword that the mainstream media was using all week. President Trump ambushed the president of South Africa with these baseless claims of a white genocide in South Africa. What's the point of lying about it? Maybe it's to dominate the headlines for a week and not talk about other more important issues. Let's listen to Trump berate a reporter. Wait, am I sharing? Here we go. Oh, whew. Just have so much fun. I start forgetting to do stuff. I knew it. I knew it. I knew it was going to make me watch an ad. It didn't the first time. It did not the first time. Now here we are trying to watch it again, and we get the ad.
Announced it would be accepting Qatari.
Start over. Beginning of the question.
Mr. President, the Pentagon announced it would be accepting a Qatari jet to be used as Air Force One.
What are you talking about? You got to get out of here. What does this have to do with the Qatari jet? They're giving the United States Air Force a jet, okay? And it's a great thing. We're talking about a lot of other things. It's NBC trying to get off the subject of what you just saw. You are a real, you're a terrible reporter. Number one, you don't have what it takes to be a reporter. You're not smart enough. But for you to go into a subject about a jet that was given to the United States Air Force, which is a very nice thing. They also gave $5.1 trillion worth of investment in addition to the jet. Go back, you ought to go back to your studio at NBC because Brian Roberts and the people that run that place, they ought to be investigated. They are so terrible the way you run that network, and you're a disgrace. No more questions from you. Go ahead.
No more questions from you. Good. Well, I mean, we got to, honestly, we got to do something about these propaganda artists. I mean, maybe if I could only pick one thing, if I could only pick one thing to fix, it would be the corrupt media. Because they're doing so much damage. They're doing so much damage to the culture. They're doing so much damage to the youth, to the voters. I mean, how can you make a decision about things that are going to affect your life if you don't have accurate information? And what's going to happen when you make that decision, trusting the information you've gotten from these people who don't want to ask a question about this, that clip that I just played came after the quote unquote ambush, where they played the video of that you've probably seen of the drone or the helicopter or whatever it was, sort of following the course of the road that has the white crosses everywhere that are supposed to, the white cross is supposed to represent a white farmer that was killed. My only issue with this story and the arguments that they're making, aside from the fact that it's been alleged to have been happening for 30 years, is that they don't really offer any evidence. They say things like, oh, yeah, but black farmers are being killed too. Okay, but 87% of the ones that are being killed are white farmers. And then we have people like this guy going up on stage allegedly saying, kill the farmers, shoot to kill. It's a disturbing thought. And maybe it's a disturbing reality. Does the United States need to be involved? Do you support that? Do you want your tax dollars being spent that way? Speaking of taxes, we have one big beautiful bill, so named because everybody's trying to kiss Donald Trump's ass, I guess. See, he didn't want, it was interesting. In the last Congress, there was all of this turmoil and controversy about single subject spending bills. We don't want to jam a bunch of stuff in these bills, and the Republicans were all in favor. We were all very happy. But now Trump is here again. And we're in favor of one big beautiful bill, or are we? I don't think I am necessarily. It doesn't seem that it's going to make it through the Senate because people are largely unhappy. It passed Congress by one vote. And all of the senators are very skeptical. They say, we're going to rewrite it. So they'll have to rewrite it, and then it'll go back to the Congress. And then at some point, I'm sure we'll all have to be very worried about a government shutdown because we can't come to an agreement. I don't know if the government shutdown is on the table, but this is what happens every time, right? Oh no, we can't agree, so we're going to shut it down. And then the media has weeks and weeks of content to fill the airwaves. But some things I think are justifiably contentious. The biggest ones are changes to Medicaid. Medicaid and Social Security are big issues every election cycle. The Democrats go out and say, if you elect these Republicans, they're going to make cuts to Social Security and Medicaid, and people are going to be unhoused. They're going to be, they're going to have food insecurity. It's one of my favorite words that I came across while I was researching food stamps from earlier in the show. But these changes to Medicaid include funding reductions. And work requirements. I mean, God forbid we allow able-bodied people to actually work for their benefits. SNAP changes, stricter requirements and reduced benefits on food stamps. Reduce the benefits. Get rid of the garbage that we allow these people to buy on food stamps. Get rid of food stamps altogether and send them meal boxes. I mean, this is a service people pay top dollar for. Why can't we do it for them? Well, they don't have a home. They don't have an address. Okay, well, they have somebody that signs them up for SNAP. We can easily feed people. I want people to be fed. We can also keep them healthy. I saw a video right before I started this show of people giving the middle finger to the camera with the caption that said, this is how they're responding to Donald Trump's reduction in SNAP benefits. And guess what? They were all probably 300 pounds plus. Eaten very well. Couldn't possibly tolerate a reduction in the benefits that I'm paying for? I think you can. What was that line from the Oliver Anthony song? If you're 5'3" and you're 300 pounds, taxes ought not to pay for your bags of fudge rounds. I can't say I disagree. I love fudge rounds. I think I'm not 100% clear on what a fudge round is. But if somebody said, I'll give you $20 if you can go into the store and find me a fudge round, I think I'd win $20. It's not a bad thing. But it's the topic that the media is going to use to try and manipulate you into voting for Democrats, which will happily shovel all of your tax dollars into a furnace. The salt deduction cap. Have you heard about this? This is also a big, big problem because Republicans in blue states want to win votes. And they think they can't do this if they sign on to legislation that won't allow rich people to write off the state and local taxes on their tax returns. Because SALT, S-A-L-T, means state and local taxes. Legislation exists that says you can write some of these off. You don't have to pay because you paid these state taxes. This, in theory, is supposed to mean you're paying these state taxes, which takes the burden, the tax burden, off of the federal government. Because these states, in theory, are spending your tax dollars on these things so that the federal government doesn't have to. And I don't know how it pencils out, but this is the theory. A lot of Republicans, and it's being said that there are no blue state Republicans in the Senate. And that these Republicans are all very much not in favor of this $40,000 increase. Well, it's gone up. It's a $30,000 increase from $10,000 to $40,000. I'm hearing that Senate Republicans are not happy with this number because they allege it's enabling out of control spending in blue states being shifted to the federal government with these SALT deductions. I feel like I'm kind of on the same page with them in that respect. I don't know. Let me know how you feel. They're also not satisfied with the deficit impact. Apparently, this big, beautiful bill will add $2.5 to $5.1 trillion to the deficit over, I'm sure, 10 years. They don't put that in there because they need to make it sound as bad as possible. Finally, senators aren't happy about limits to repayment options and the loan amounts for student loans. I think the federal government needs to get all the way out of student loans unless they're saying, hey, this is how we're going to offer you free college so you don't have to take that loan out. I really think that we have to offer these, the prerequisites, the ones that the colleges say you have to take to meet your credit requirements to earn your degree. All of those should be offered in high school. After your 12th year, you should be able to keep going to that same high school to learn, to earn your prerequisite credits for whatever degree you decide. And it should happen at night, and it could happen with the same teachers. Should be easily done with minimal economic impact. I don't know how to make that happen, but let's do it. We got no tax on tips, which I think this was the thing that was easily pushed through, that everybody was like, yeah, no tax on tips. That's easy. Why? Why is that easy? Because these people probably don't pay taxes on their tips to begin with. Most places. In fact, I think I've even heard that the reputation of a restaurant from an employee's perspective is sort of negatively impacted by the work, by the requirements to document all of the tips that you receive. They do that because they're basically licking the boot of the government. Look, no, we're doing good things. We're doing good things. We're making our poor, beleaguered employees claim their tips on their income so that you can go around and collect all of those taxes. Some great guys. Great guy. It's one of the ways, I suppose, that the governments control the corporations. Although, would you really consider a restaurant, a diner, a bar to be a corporation? No. It is the way it always is. The corporations make the rules. And they don't want competition. So I don't know. I bet Denny's employees have to claim their tips. I don't know. The big franchises. I think the big franchises are expected to make their employees claim their tips. But that's not where it ends. We also got no taxes on overtime, which impacts me directly. I work a lot of overtime. I'm happy with this. And this is one of the things that I fought with Croc about extensively. Taxes on Social Security. I had to ask multiple times if Trump eliminated taxes on Social Security, and it told me no over and over again. Here's what I learned. In this big, beautiful bill legislation is a $4,000 deduction for taxes paid on Social Security. Now, how much do you think Social Security recipients pay in taxes on that Social Security payment? It was actually way less than I thought it was. On average, Social Security recipients only pay about $1,700 in taxes per year. But Grok told me no. Donald Trump did not successfully legislate no tax on Social Security. And I asked again, if I paid, no kidding, this is what I asked. If I paid $3,000 in taxes on my Social Security payments, and I used Donald Trump's $4,000 Social Security tax deduction, how much taxes would I owe? What do you think the answer I got was? Well, blah, 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 because I didn't ask it to give me a simple answer. Conceivably, you could expect to pay zero taxes if you only paid this much money. And of course, I get all of the political language. You're not just accepting Social Security payments, you're also, in theory, as a retiree, accepting pension payments, 401k payments, which you may or may not have to pay taxes on depending on how your 401k is structured. But yes, Donald Trump did effectively eliminate tax on Social Security for most people. But the leftist ass Grok X AI has language to suggest that maybe he didn't. Grok did not want to give Trump credit. And as you've seen from earlier in the show, I now have to ask Grok to remove the political commentary. I'm mad about it and I want to believe the worst, but I don't necessarily think that it's insidious. And let me tell you why. Because the internet is flooded with propaganda, and not just propaganda from the mainstream media, but also bots, right? We've covered this. A huge percentage of all internet traffic is bots, like up to or over 80%, depending on who you ask. Now, these large language models, which we're all being told to refer to as artificial intelligence, they're drawing a lot of their information from, if not the internet, I know Grok at least is plugged into what everyone is saying on X. And if you have, say, 30%, because I wouldn't suggest that all 50% of internet traffic is Marxist bots pushing Marxist propaganda. But let's say 30% are. That is injecting this leftist bias into the large language model that is Grok. And I don't know what it would take to reverse it, but I'm not okay with it. And I'm not trying to make excuses, because it's very damaging to search for information. I mean, what's real anymore? We can't even look at the Zapruder video and think that this is actually the film. Look it up. I mean, no, never mind. Don't look it up. If you look it up, every search result on YouTube says, oh, modified, enhanced, edited, enhanced, high definition. It's all been doctored in some way. Has it been changed the way, who was it, Mr. Horn in the testimony is explaining it has been? I don't know. That's the problem. Everything's been altered. Everything's been changed. Maybe it's just been enhanced. Maybe it's been altered completely. We just don't know. And we may never know. Massive reforms need to take place with classification, with the way the media is allowed to conduct itself. I know it's a scary concept. I mean, do we dare suggest that we don't allow a free press in the country because this free press happens to get taken over by massive multi-billion-dollar international corporations that want to feed the consumers a narrative, that want to be able to control how these consumers think and feel and vote? Is that an acceptable consequence of having a free media? I have my doubts. Which reminds me, we'll go out. Hearing from Matt Gaetz. Remember Matt Gaetz? He was a great congressman, in my opinion. I don't really know, because nothing is real and I don't believe anything. He found a spot on One American News, and he is covering what I thought was a pretty cool back and forth between Secretary of State Marco Rubio, former senator of Florida, and Chris Van Hollen. He was one of the big cheerleaders for Kilmar Abrego Armando Garcia, the alleged MS-13 illegal immigrant from Venezuela that the media all called the Maryland man to try to garner your sympathy for him. Well, they're going at it because Senator Van Hollen, or maybe Congressman, who cares? The guy's a scumbag and a prick. He's unhappy because Marco Rubio, who is now the head of USAID, has made tremendous cuts. And they had a wonderful exchange that was about 4 minutes long that I have. But I thought we'd go out on a positive note. Check in with Matt Gaetz. And let's critique him. Let's critique him here on his assessment of what happened between Marco Rubio and Chris Van Hollen. And also how he's doing as a news anchor. The Matt Gaetz Show.
Secretary of State Marco Rubio, he got confirmed with every Senate vote. Now he's doing a lot of work in the Trump administration. He's the Secretary of State, the National Security Advisor, the head of USAID, and actually also the National Archivist. He testified before the U.S. Senate yesterday and got into a testy exchange with Maryland Senator Chris Van Hollen. Senator Van Hollen thinks we don't send enough of your money to foreign countries.
And you used to speak with conviction about the importance of foreign aid as a tool to advance American values and interests. Then you stood by while Elon Musk took a chainsaw to USAID and other assistance programs.
Senator Van Hollen wants you to believe that American hegemony itself hangs by a thread unless we fund gay pride parades in Prague or transsexual comic books in Peru. Secretary Rubio didn't give an inch given his work on USAID, and he offered this in response.
I don't regret cutting $10 million for male circumcisions in Mozambique. I don't know how that makes us stronger and more prosperous as a nation. I don't regret psychosocial support services.
I raised
USAID.
Sudan, Mr. Secretary.
Can I respond to that here? We spent $227,000 for Big Cat's YouTube channel from USAID. We spent $14 million for social cohesion in Mali, whatever the hell that means. So I can go on and on. In the case of El Salvador, absolutely. Absolutely. We deported gang members, including the one that you had a margarita with.
But this wasn't just a call for more international slush funds for woketopians. At issue was the deportation of Kilmar Abrego Garcia to El Salvador. You'll recall Garcia is an illegal alien from El Salvador. A trial judge and an appellate court found him associated with the MS-13 gang, and the state of Tennessee released this video of Garcia looking like he's literally human trafficking.
Anything good? You got a bunch of people in here, don't you? It's one for yes. The problem with my license right now is expired, right? It's suspended? It's suspended. Does anybody else have a driver's license? Driver's license? Yeah. No, nobody? Only me, so.
He's hauling these people for money is what he's doing. There's 8 people in there.
Yeah, I didn't know that. They put an extra row of seats in there.
Yeah. So he's getting paid to haul these people, probably to Maryland.
Not many people had ever heard of Senator Van Hollen until he decided to make the re-importation of this gang member his cause du jour. But when the number one thing...
Why? To get Trump? Is that why they all sided with the gang members? The Venezuelan terrorists? Just to be on the opposite? It's, boy. I mean, absent a lot of interference and a lot of mainstream media propaganda, I think we're looking pretty good. The problem is, and this is what you have to watch out for, You have to watch out for the media narrative and the social media bots that will lie to you and tell you, oh, Trump's poll numbers are down. It's not looking good for Republicans in the polls on the upcoming midterms. They can penetrate the cultural narrative with this message. Then they can cheat the election and lose the power over the House. And the Republicans will lose control of the House and potentially the Senate. And the last 2 years of the Trump administration will be basically like the first 2 years of the Trump administration. And that is, of course, if we're not living through a repeat of Trump's first 2 years going back to 2017. It remains to be seen. How do you think Matt Gaetz is doing? I'm a little bit sad, honestly. He's a One America News guy. He's probably getting paid pretty good. I wonder if we can find that out. I wonder if Grok will tell us. How much money is Matt Gaetz making at OAN? It all depends on if it's being publicly disclosed. No publicly available information. I wonder if it would be publicly available if it was a lot, or if it would not be. If it would be less likely that it's publicly available because it's an astronomical amount of money. These sort of newly born conservative news agencies, I'm skeptical on them. It reminds me actually a lot about politicians and the way politicians behave. They go in all gung-ho. They're ready to make a difference. Then the system gets them. Like DuckDuckGo. Been rumored to be sort of incestuously involved with Google. And they use Google plugins, which gives Google access to a lot of information. And when these kind of things happen, I think it's only a matter of time. But Matt Gaetz couldn't get hired at Fox. They certainly didn't want him at CNN or MSNBC. But I doubt it's a full-time gig. I'm sure he's doing good work. And I wonder, once Judge Jeanine Pirro, who is now the U.S. attorney, since Ed Martin, who we heard from earlier, was not confirmed to take on the job full-time, Judge Jeanine gets her turn. And I wonder, should Judge Jeanine not achieve confirmation herself, we may see Matt Gaetz. Or we may see Matt Gaetz leading some committee or special counsel in the future. There's a lot to come. Don't be disappointed. Because a lot of the information that comes out will be released, as I've said before, when it's most politically beneficial. Because unfortunately, it seems like winning elections is the only thing that these politicians really care about. Maybe excepting Donald Trump and a few of the people in his close orbit. I have confidence in the FBI. I don't think that we should be really sad that Kash Patel and Dan Bongino have come out and said, yes, Epstein really did kill himself. I think it's a tactical move. And I think that there are many more exciting things to come. So make sure you tune in. Again, next week, Sunday, 11 a.m.-ish is when we go live. And of course, you can find the audio podcast wherever audio podcasts are found. Please head over to X. Follow me there. Send me a message. I'd love to know what you think. I'm also on Minds, the earthvox podcast. I'm on YouTube. I'm on Twitch. I'm on Steam. I'm on the PlayStation Network, and you can leave me a voicemail. 701-787-1121. I'll be back.